You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
I am a member of the butterfly culture where we work.
Hi, welcome to another Cold Fusion video. DeGogo here. So, former CEO of Apple, John Sculley, is starting his own phone company. So what exactly is going on here? Let's take a look at the backstory. In the late 1970s, John Sculley was a successful marketer turned CEO at PepsiCo. In the early 1980s, Steve Jobs wanted to apply Sculley's marketing prowess to sell personal computers.
While Jobs pursued his Mac mission, he needed a more orthodox chief executive to run the company, a respectable face who could sell to corporate America. He chose Pepsi-Cola executive John Sculley. Sculley refused. Leave Pepsi for a 4-year-old company that had been set up in a garage? Are you serious? But it was hard saying no to Steve Jobs.
And then he looked up at me and just stared at me with this stare that only Steve Jobs has. And he said, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world?" And I just gulped because I knew I would wonder for the rest of my life, what I would have missed.
Sculley, with a solid business background and considerable recent success, would give Apple an image of greater reliability and stability, which they needed at that time. According to insiders, there was a fallout between Jobs and Sculley that happened during the development of the Macintosh. According to author Alex Dutchman, Jobs created his own team to build his own product, the Macintosh. His team actually had its own building and became a company within a company. The Macintosh team competed with other parts of the company that actually made money. Because of this, a power struggle erupted between Sculley and Jobs. In the spring of 1985, Apple's board sided with Sculley, the CEO at the time, and removed Jobs from his command at the Macintosh Group. This stripped him of his responsibilities, and by the summer of 1985, Steve Jobs was no longer a part of Apple. As we know, Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, and the rest is history. But today, there's a very strange epilogue to this story. John Sculley, now aged 76, is creating his own phone. The name of this new phone? The Obi World Phone. The plan for Sculley is basically a mid-level, low-cost phone with 2 models, running a skinned version of Android. Sculley, being a businessman, has already noticed the Western market saturation, so Obi is following hot on the heels of Google's Android One. That is, they're targeting the emerging markets. The phone's target market is buyers 25 years and younger in the emerging markets of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. A cheap cost and an aspiring design isn't all. Obi is relying on themselves being nimble to differentiate themselves against Apple, HTC, and Samsung, and subsequently give themselves a fighting chance in this industry. As some of you who have been subscribers of this channel might remember in my Nokia documentary, it was the large size of Nokia which led to a ton of bureaucracy and ultimately a slow reaction time that aided in the demise of the telecommunications giant. Being a small private company, Obi has the ability to quickly iterate designs and swap out new components if it believes that it will be beneficial to their business. And that's a real advantage in such a tightening market. Let's hear a bit from John Sculley himself.
Are you trying to remake the iPhone?
We're really inspired by the tremendous success that Apple has had with the iPhone, but Apple is really not a competitor to us or we to them. What has happened is that technology is so commoditized that it's now possible to build a high-quality smartphone where we can differentiate with great design. I brought together the head of Apple's product design when I was there, Robert Bruner, who originally hired Johnny Ives. We can sell at price points way below anything Apple would ever be interested in, and we can appeal to the emerging markets. We'll never have much interest to sell in most of Europe or in the United States because these are replacement markets with strong competition. But we're focused on the emerging markets, markets where we have already $1 billion supply chain and IT distribution business, so we have some familiarity with the sales channels. And we believe that we can reach out to first-time buyers who may have the aspiration for these higher priced products, but they don't have the personal budget. We wouldn't be interested in doing this, Stephen, if we weren't moving into a market that is going through exceptionally high growth. If you're going into a market where you have to take your business away from a competitor, that's really hard. and especially with great competitors like some of the Chinese companies. But if you're going into a market which is growing at incredible rate of growth, as we're seeing in the emerging markets, and where you've got new young consumers coming in who are looking for products that can have aspirational design to them, but at attractive price points, we don't need to get a very big market share in order to be able to build a very attractive business for ourselves. Remember, we're a private company, we're not a public company, and so our ambitions may be quite different than some of the large public companies.
Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the specs. The flagship Obi World phone, called the SF1, has a 5-inch 1080p display with 4G LTE and a flash on both the front and back cameras with a Snapdragon 615 processor. It's priced at $199 for 2GB of RAM and 16GB of storage, or $249 for 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage. The cheaper Obi World phone, the SJ 1.5, comes with 3G, a MediaTek quad-core processor, comes in multiple colors, and has a 720p screen. The phone is $129 for 16GB of internal storage. Both phones have dual SIM slots, expandable SD storage up to 64 gigs, and 3000 mAh batteries. The phones will be available in October and will launch both online and in store. So what can we make from all of this? Well, seemingly, it really does seem that John Scully has the right idea. A low price, a different choice of specs depending on your budget, a red-hot emerging market, and a small nimble company that can make changes when needed. Although it seems like Obi is a budget version of the Chinese company OnePlus, they could still be seeing some success in a largely untapped market. We'll have to wait and see and keep an eye on how this goes. Anyway, so that was just a story that I thought was really interesting and kind of highlights where the slight turn of the mobile industry is starting to go. So this has been Dagogo, you've been watching Cold Fusion. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, or thumbs down if you didn't. Leave a comment, and subscribe if you're new. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know more about Android or iOS, and want to know the differences between the two, and want to see the histories of both of them, then you can check out my previous videos on Android versus iOS. There'll be the first links in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you again soon for the next video. Cheers, have a good one.
Cold Fusion. It's new thinking.